Hello friends, welcome back to another tutorial by yours truly. My name is Ray. This time we're going to jump into HTML5. My last tutorial was on C++. I'm going to take a little break from programming. We're going to hypertext markup language. Um, the this is the sections that we'll be covering throughout the tutorial. I'll be talking through, of these sections: the header, navigation sections, headings, articles, sides, and footers. Uh, Not all web pages have all these parts. Some have some have the other. It depends on the page. Um, and I'll be talking in this particular part of the tutorial, part one. I'll be doing an introduction to hypertext markup language, and the tags that we'll talk about will be the doc type, HTML, head, title, body, headers 1 through 6, um, paragraphs, breaks, and HR or horizontal lines, and then comments. Another thing that I'll be covering in this particular tutorial, part one, will be formatting and all the tags on the screen from ABBR, address, B, BDIs, all that, all of the versions. It seems like a lot, but trust me, they're not. They're not a lot of tags. I'm going to make this with examples. I'll be showing examples on the screen, and I'll be talking about the tags that I'll be using, and we'll go from there. This is part one of the HTML tutorial. I hope you enjoy it, and let's get to it. All right, folks, so here we are. What I've done is I made several web pages, simple web pages, just to demonstrate the tags that I'll be talking about. And the first one is the hello world. Now, it is customary for programmers to do a hello world page, but HTML is not a programming language. It is not a programming language. I made to repeat that. It's not a programming language. You can do some JavaScript, you can do PHP, you can do all these things that are programming languages, but HTML itself is not a programming language. It's hypertext markup language. It is a language, and it reminds me of, if you're old enough, you remember the old WordStar where, you would type a document and you would use tags in the beginning and the end of a bold or italics or underline, or, you have all these web page, these page commands for your word processor. Well, that's what HTML looks like exactly. There are several tags on this particular web page. Now I use brackets. This is brackets. I like brackets because it's easy to use, and I can have several files here. I have here already open a little web page that all I'm going to be doing is refreshing, and it's going to be reflecting what's in here. And then here's a text file that I saved. I used to save all my little examples. That's all it's going to do. So let's start with doc type. Doc type tells the browser, and the browser being Google, Chrome, Safari, Opera, whatever browser you want, doesn't really matter. This doc type, it starts with the exclamation point, the less than exclamation point doc type. It tells it what kind of language we're going to be using. In this case, HTML. That's the name of HTML. There are several versions of HTML. I'm going to be working with HTML5. So most of the commands are backward compatible. Some are not, only because they discontinue them, but I'll try not to use any of those, or I will mention it. So anyways, so this is how you tell it there's going to be HTML. Now, with a very few exceptions, most tags, and that's what these are called, the things there in between brackets are called tags. They have a beginning and an end. For example, I have HTML, and then I have a slash HTML. So there's a beginning and an end. The same here, I have a head and then a slash head. I have a title and a slash title, and then whatever's in between is, what that tag is going to be used for, or what it is. But not all of them have it. Okay. For example, the BR or the P for page do not have an ending tag. You can put one, but you don't need one. You can just put you know, BR and it will break to the next line, or P and it will do a new paragraph. However, there's sometimes when you do want to use the ending tag on those optionally, if you want to format something, but that's something you would do with CSS in another tutorial that I'll be covering after I'm done with the HTML. It'll be a few parts down. Comments, you see this less than exclamation point. That means that whatever follows is a comment. And then it ends with 2 dashes and the greater than sign, like a little arrow, right? So anything in here is ignored by the browser. Hello world on a web page, obviously. And then I put in here the tags that I'm gonna be talking about, you know, in this case. Now, when you see something like this, it has HTML and I say lang for language equals en. This is, I call it a parameter because I'm a programmer. So I would call it a parameter, but it's called an attribute. They call it attributes here, the correct name. So a parameter or an attribute, whichever name you want to use. If you want to go formally, like, you know, most people that do this in a way more professionally than me, they call it an attribute. I call it a parameter. Either way, as long as you understand and you know what it is, that's all you really need to know. HTML does not need this parameter. These are optional. Sometimes the parameter is mandatory. Sometimes it is not. The attribute is mandatory or not. In this case, it is not. But I'm telling it that the language that I'm using is English, EN for English. I could have done SP for Spanish, or, you know, CS for Chinese, and so on. But that's, you know, that's for the, it makes just the browser a little bit more aware of what it's dealing with. I have no benchmarks to tell you if it's faster or not, you know, to be honest. In fact, most of the web pages I've done, I don't even use the lang, but they're made here in the United States, so I don't have to worry about it. The head is one of the parts that goes into HTML. Here we have that whatever's in the head goes to the header. Meta char set UTF-8. This here, if you don't understand what it is, you don't have to put it. I could delete it. You're not going to see any difference in this. But I'm telling you, basically, metas are little tags that are used to tell the browser a few things. They used to be used very popular a long time ago for searching, you know, like keywords you want to search for on within your document. In this case, I'm using the character set, which is what we use here in the Western part of the world. That's what this stands for. It's a little technical, so don't worry about it. Again, you don't have to worry about this when you can get rid of it if you want. Nothing's gonna happen. Now, title is something that you want to worry about. Whatever's inside the title goes here. You see this right here? The title goes on the title of the tab. In this case, this is a tab of, I'm using Edge, but it could have been Chrome or Safari, it doesn't matter. And then, of course, this is the end of head. I'm not going to be talking about JavaScript or PHP or, you know, anything else, or anything else that can go in it, or DHTML or anything like that. But this is the area where that would be. Or if you have cascading style sheets, you know, you do them in this section over here. I'm not going to do that in this tutorial. I will have one for cascading style sheets or CSS later on. But for now, we need to cover the basics before we move on, right? You need to know how to crawl before you can run. And then we have the body. The body tells the browser, this is what the main content is. Now here I see H1 through, and then /H1, obviously, and that says hello world. Now, you see how here it says hello world, this is the title. And then here it says hello world. I'm gonna change this hello world here to my name. And I'm going to save it. And when I save it, I'm going to refresh this, and it says Hello World by Ray Ojeda. So I'm saving in my local drive. I'm not going to the internet with this, but that's the basic web page. And I can resize this, doesn't matter. You know, I'm going to do this right here like that. Hello World by Ray Ojeda. That's H1 is the header. So that is the whole purpose of this one particular HTML document, is to basically introduce you to writing something on the screen in any browser. It doesn't matter if it's your smartphone, your tablet, or your computer, whether it's Windows or Mac, it doesn't really matter, Unix, you name it. This will work because this is universal. This is not have nothing to do with an operating system or anything like that. This is on the internet. In this case, I'm testing on my local computer, but I can might as well I can put this on a web page out there and it will work. Okay. All right. So that was the hello world. Let's do a little of a example with headlines. And what I was telling you about that I have this to save time in the interest of time. I'm gonna be doing copy paste. In this particular example, I'm gonna do H1 through H6. Now, headlines example, here's my title, headlines example. Now you notice how each one of these headlines and starts with a 1, ends with a 1, starts with a 2, ends with a 2. These are the standard headlines that you have in HTML from H1 through H6. And what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna save the file. And by the way, everything see right here, I'm saving as index HTML. Index is the default name for the starting page on a, in any document for the internet. Yes, you can change the name. You can save it as anything you want. It will work. I have HTML. It will work no matter what. But the default for most browsers, or it is for most browsers, is index HTML or index HTML. Instead of opening the file, I'm just going to refresh because it's the same file and look at the difference in headlines. Headline 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. By the way, this tutorial is being saved in my YouTube channel. I do have a WordPress page, old school programming, right? And in there, I have a written explanation of all of this. This video is going to be accompanying that blog. Okay. All right, now let's do comments. Example number 3. We're doing comments. Remember, I already talked a little about comments. Let's start with this exclamation point, the less than exclamation point. Here's the break, page, and comment tags example. And see how I have this right here? This comment is ignored by the browser. See, I start with the less than exclamation point. I end with the arrow. I call it the arrow. And then title hello world. Sure, why not? Again, another comment in the body. It's going to be ignored. Now, if I start typing and continuously typing and it wraps around this, it doesn't really matter. I'll tell you right now, when you go to the browser, it's just gonna be a continuous line. However, this BR right here, that's the break, BR for break. It forces the browser to continue on the next line. And paragraph tags, BR, go to the next line. Paragraph, on the other hand, inserts a blank line before the paragraph. So this one takes it to the next line. This one leaves a whole line in between. And then HR right here, HR is now being used. Can you tell? Goodbye. Now I'm gonna save this so you can see what it looks like. I'm gonna save it. I'm gonna go to my web page and I'm just gonna refresh it. Hello, it's a sample document that shows the use of breaks. See that after breaks, I have the BR. See, it jumped to the next line. But look at this, there's a space right here. This P forces a blank line before the paragraph. Now the HR, it's a horizontal, right there, the HR. So that's how this works. You have noticed here, I have 2 BRs after it says goodbye and have 2 BRs in the end. See how I have a blank line? If I would have done a P here, it would have done the same thing. I put 2 BRs, it just jumped. The number of HBR is a new line, new line, new line. That's basically what that is. So that is how you use the BR, P, and then how you make comments in HTML. I'm gonna go ahead and erase this. I'm gonna do an example with the ABBR tag. For ABBR stands for abbreviate. ABBR example, and then ABBR does have again, I call it a parameter. It has an attribute. It's called title. The title equals World Health Organization. Then I close it, and then I close it. You know, the title is in between quotes right there. This is what the title is. And then WHO, WHO, and then I close the abbreviation. Was founded in 1948. And that's all this is. It's just a one line. But what does it do? Well, let me show you exactly what it does. I'm going to save it. Again, I'm going to just refresh. And there it says, see, it says WHO. You don't see where it says World Health Organization. But if I put my mouse over it, boom, there it is. World Health Organization. See, just by putting the mouse over WHO, the browser puts in the description. If I take it out, it goes away. Put it back in there, and it shows again. That's what the abbreviation is. So I can put different abbreviations throughout my document, and if I put my mouse cursor over it, it tells me the whole word. That is the ABBR example. Nah, that's cool, right? All right, let's do an address example. And there it is, the tag is address. And see the body. Now here's my address written by, and then this mail to this. Don't worry about some things that I have not covered yet, but basically this is a link. It'll open up whatever default mail program you have, whether it's your phone or tablet or whatever. It'll open your default mail software, and it'll try to send an email to this email address here, John Doe. And then I have all this address. Here's the BRs. And then I finish my address in my body. And I'm going to save this. And when I do this, you notice how it made it like italics? Now see the John Doe right there? Look what is shown on the bottom. It wants to send a email to the webmaster@example.com. That's what this href. I will cover href more in detail later on in a different part of the tutorial, not in this particular tutorial, but this is basically a link. Let's call it a link. Now links do two things. They can, in this case, it mails to, or if I would have done, I could have done here CNN.com, for example. I'm gonna save it, and if I go here, if I do this, it'll try to go to CNN.com. That's basically what it will try to do. Right? But in this case, the address, it italics the address. I personally don't use it that much. You can probably tell that there's not a lot of use for it. I'm pretty sure there was at one point or another. But I don't use it, but it's there and it works. All right. This is some formatting example. I'm doing cut and paste here. To save time, obviously. Again, here's my formatting example. Here's my comment. My language is English. Text formatting. There's my title of my document. The following example is different formatting tags. What does the P do? A paragraph, right? It jumps. It leaves a blank line. So I have bold, computer code, some text that will be deleted, emphasize, which is like bold, italicize, keyboard. And by the way, if you go to my WordPress blog, I talk in detail about most of these commands and what they do, more than I do here. Okay, so anyways, there's each one of the different types of fonts, because these are just fonts, by the way. I'm gonna save it, and I'm gonna refresh this, and look. Here's my bold. That's what it looks like. That's what computer code looks like. Yeah, this right there. This text was deleted. See, it has that line that goes through it. This is emphasized, italicized text, right? This is keyboard input. It looks very similar to computer code, but it's actually smaller. It's a little smaller, and it is a little italic, not completely italic. This is mark test. Smaller, strong, subscript and superscript. Now here, because I put the subscript and the superscript right next to each other. You can't tell, but I'm going to do a little trick right now. Check it out. Okay, so underline, sample, and variable text. Okay, so you see the subscript. I'm going to put in here X, and then I'm going, instead of subscript, I'm going to put 2, and then I'm going to put a paragraph there. See how brackets automatically puts the /p. I take it out because you don't need it, but I'm going to put X, and then I'm going to put, just so it looks different, I'm going to put 3, and then I'm going to put the letter Y. So X2 and Y3. And I'm going to save it, and I'm going to refresh this. See, that's the subscript, and this is the subscript. See, now you can tell the difference, X2 and then Y3, right? So you can see how you can actually make complex mathematical equations. No, it's not going to resolve the answer for you, but you can show it on the screen. You know, this is only, HTML will only display items on the screen. In my blog in WordPress, I actually tell you the CSS equivalent. If you want to do it with cascading style sheets, you know, when I get more into CSS in the next tutorial, there'll be a few parts down after this. I talk about CSS and how you can, you know, have some equivalence, and you start using CSS gives HTML more enrichment, if you will. So anyways, so there's my subscript and my superscript example. This is the block quote example. And I don't personally use block quote, but I have to include it. Here's the text, here's my block quote, here's my site. This basically is like, this is where I got it from. If you ever written a document in APA format, or you know, I have done normally documents in APA for university, and you have to be doing citations. Well, that's how you would do it in a HTML format, if you will. Here's site, and then here's site again, but this site here is without the block quote. I'm going to go ahead and save it and refresh it and see. Now, when I did the block quote, notice how it indented the document. See, it is indented. Now here, this part here, the site, can you use without this? And here's my CNN.com. Notice how site, it doesn't take me anywhere. See, if I do this, it's not going to go anywhere. It's just telling me, it's in italics. It's, you know, that's my citation. But this over here is, it's indented because it uses the block quote. So pretty cool. All right. That is the block quote. I don't use it, but it's there. Now, this command here is also another one that I hardly ever use. It's the BDI and the BDO, bidirectional. And I misspelled here. This is DBI and BDO. Anyways, and it's not DBO, it's BDO and BDI. Anyways, so DI, I don't know, DI, there we go. Anyways, I don't like to have errors on my stuff, but anyways, everyone, there you go. So now you're looking at this. This is Arabic. I don't speak Arabic. I hope I'm not putting a bad word in here. I hope it's not. This is a text that I copied, and this is using the BDI and BDO. So I'm in the United States, and over here we write left to right. But some other languages you do right to left, like Arabic. And I have some friends are they speak Arabic, and they type from right to left. Other languages that do that from top to bottom, or so there's different ways to do that. So when they've designed these codes, they're doing that with that in mind, like saying, not everybody is in the United States of the world. In fact, there's a reason why we put this English in here. I'm in the United States, but what if you were in Russia or France or in Morocco, right? So you should be able to do a document that works anywhere in the world for the people that you intended, for your audience, right? Your intended audience. So how does it look like? This is what that document looks like. Now, again, now let's just look at this right here. See this video RTL? This is required for video. It's a direction attribute, and it's right to left. That's what the RTL means, right to left. This paragraph will go right to left. And look at this. This paragraph will go right to left. Now, this may not make a lot of sense for us who speak English, but if you speak Arabic, I can see, obviously with the proper grammar and all that, if you do understand that language, you would do that and correctly write from right to left the correct letters in Arabic, right? I mean, this is something that would be very appropriate. I don't speak it, but I know I can do it. So that's what that looks like. Interesting stuff. We don't use it, but it's there. One thing I do use, however, is the meter and the progress bars. Now, there's a difference between a meter and a progress bar. The meter is for a distance, is for a value, and you have some attributes for the meter. One is the value, the minimum, and the maximum. So you're making a bar, right? This is not something you would use if you want to do, like if you're downloading a file or displaying, doing a calculation on screen, you will not use the meter, okay? It's not, at least not in the way you're thinking, not in the way you're thinking. This has a little bit more to it. On the other hand, the progress bar is something you would do. Let's say you generate a report, you said, using HTML to tell people, hey, let me make these calculations for you, gather this information from a database or whatever it is. And while it's doing that, you can display a progress bar so people not think that you just left them there without doing anything. So I'm going to save it. Now I'm going to refresh to the same file. See, that's the meter. And you see how I have two? One says value 2 with a 0 to 10. That's what that would look like. On the other hand, 0.6, 60%. See, that's two ways of displaying the meter. Again, I'm telling it the value. So this will not tell me how much percentage is downloading, how much percentage I'm doing a calculation or anything like that. I'm specific. Now, if I had a presentation that I'm doing online, I can say, you know what, you're in slide 4 out of 10. Now that will be appropriate. That will be very, very appropriate. On the other hand, see this example here, downloading progress. Now that's a progress bar. It will keep incrementing. In this case, it's not going to do anything, but because I'm just telling it to do a value 22 with a max of 100, so that's right there. If I change this to 44 and I save it and I refresh it, now it's jumped to 44. Now the idea here is that as it's doing calculations every now and then, you would change the value. You can do this with JavaScript or, but I'm not talking about JavaScript at this point, so I don't want to confuse you with that because it could get very complicated. Instead, just know that the meter is something you have more control over than the progress bar. So there's the code. Let's do a little bit more. I call it more formatting codes because it does more formatting things and more tags, basically. There's the PRE text, the pretext. There's the Q sample. And emphasize text, strong and emphasize are very similar. You'll see right now there's code, there's keyboard, and variable. This is just more examples of formatting. I will leave, you can see on the screen the codes that I'm using. And I'm going to do this. So here it is. This is pre-element is displaying a fixed width font, and it preserves both space and line break. See how I'm resizing my browser, and even though I'm making it smaller and bigger, this line does not wrap around, but this one here does. You notice how one is wrapping, but the other one is not. The one in the pre does not wrap around. See, it does not. On the other hand, the other ones do. So that's one main difference. Now, if you're doing a document that can be potentially be viewed from a browser on a smartphone, definitely not the one you want to use. But there are times when you want to do that. If you're formatting a table, for example, you may want to do that. So it's a fixed font, it's fixed width font. This is the example with the Q, and then here's the emphasized text, and strong text is bold. Strong is bold. And this is I'm just repeating some keyboard and variable text. So yeah, okay. This I believe is my last example. See, I told you it wasn't that much. It looked like a lot of code text, but it's not. Let me save it before I forget. Here I'm doing the template. This is basically a template example. I make this bigger. That's what it looks like. This is a template example. I'm using the time with the date time attribute here. I'm displaying the time. And over here, I have a picture. I'm using a header with a style 2, which is the second to biggest font to type the word flower. And then I'm using the screen PNG is a picture. And then the width and the height. Don't worry about these. I'm gonna be talking more about images in another part of the tutorial. I think it's like part 3 or 4. I'm not sure, because the next part is actually forms. But here I just needed to put this for an example. Now see how it says try to shrink the browser window to view the very long. Okay, so I'm leaving this on the screen so you can see it. Now I think I already saved it, but I'm gonna go here and refresh. That's the template. Now notice that if I go up and down, see how that's my browser. See how I can go up and down and scroll. That depends on the browser. Now, see how it changes the size. And that is most of them. You're gonna see that I put in here does not work in Internet Explorer 11. Don't worry about that. I don't even know if anybody uses Internet Explorer. Most people use Edge now because that's the replacement Microsoft had for it. Anyways, that's what I have for your part 1 of HTML tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. It's very easy to use. In the comments, I will leave a link to the WordPress document that goes with this. And I hope you enjoy it. See you in part 2 of this tutorial sometime in the next week. Until then, you know what to do. If you like this, please like my video, subscribe to my channel. I appreciate it. Thank you very much, guys, and see you next time.